I've said this too many times already about how we have to stand up and fight for what we know is right and never back down from it. Don't let it be questioned when you know it is correct. Defend it. Give your reasons, but never back down. Do not cede what you know to be right. Michael Cannon works for the Cato Institute. And he said something in front of Congress a while back, and I happened to cross it, and I think it is completely justified what he said and correct. And that's that if we have a government, president, who no longer holds himself under the law, no longer thinks the law applies to him or his government, then the people should fairly assume that they no longer are under the law either. That was the Magna Carta. Hundreds of years ago was over. The king is subject to the rule of law as well. He is not above it. He is not God's divine arm. He is another man. And among men we are equal, and all held accountable to the law. If our government no longer sees the law as applicable to them, it no longer is applicable to us. When I say applicable, no longer being applicable, I don't mean that you can go out and murder people. I mean you can go out and steal. But I mean that any obligation you have towards the authority of that government's officers, its representatives, the fines it wants to impose on you, are irrelevant. If the government is no longer under the law, neither are we. Michael Cannon also spoke at the same moment about how we have one right as a people that we don't talk about very often. And I would say it's also a duty if we have an abusive government, and that is the right to revolution. But it doesn't have to be armed. Be peaceful. But steel yourselves. For when do the powerful give up power without a fight? Answer me that. And show me when in history that's happened. I'll get what I'm getting right now, and that's silence. It never has. It never will. Government's purpose is to grow and propagate itself. George Washington said, government is like fire, a useful servant and a fearful master. The fire that once was a small, useful fire that could do certain things for us and defend our country is now that fire that has grown out of the campfire circle or out of the fireplace in our houses and is consuming all we own. Consume the very things that we are and the rights that define us as a people. So, as I say, my words, feel free to quote them. The principles you have are the bones of who you are, but your actions are the meat on them. No more crying to defund this, defund that to our politicians. I don't. Wish they would. But I defunded it myself for Obamacare. I've retracted my consent. Consent is your tax dollars. It is that simple, and it is that clear. If you fund something that is abusive to you, your consent becomes irrelevant. Because in your funding of that abusive government, what happens? What happens? They rule you anyway because you give them the means to do so. You have to retract those means, take them back because they are yours and yours alone. We have delegated our responsibility to preserve freedom to a distant capital, and they've been poor stewards. How can they expect us to pay taxes when they don't follow their own laws? They can't. It's time to let them know that. Stop talking. Stop patting yourself on the back on Twitter. You're the Patriots. And do something. Encourage everybody else to do something. If we all stand up, this ends. They can't put half the country in jail for not paying taxes. And right then and there, the entitlement state stops. I've had people say, well, don't do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to hurt people, because people are going to get hurt in the process. The government will try to cling to power when people stop paying. Food stamps will stop. Some poor communities could riot. Sometimes to make an omelet, you gotta break a few eggs. And preserving freedom, people have to realize it isn't free. And then out of respect for the men who got up and fought wars for this country. And don't talk to me about how long the wars we fight now are for capitalists and globalists, not capitalists, but globalists, and they're for money or this or that. I would agree with you to a great extent on that. But the men who fight, those are the elite that make those wars happen. The man who signs up on the dotted line, who writes his name on that check, to be cashed up to a price including his life, he's not joined for those reasons. They're joined for this country. And respect that. Don't respect the politicians that have taken them and abused their sacrifice. Just think about the fact they're willing to make it and have respect for that. We all owe no less than what they gave. Otherwise, you're saying that you're not willing to give what this place takes to maintain America. It is time to wake up, do your duty as a citizen, as a free man, woman, whatever. You are free. You are meant to be that way. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. Do not live a coward's life. Make decisions that stand for freedom, and you will never regret for every day you live from here till the last. Because if you stand as a coward, or kneel I should say, you will regret that to the day you die. And you will pass knowing that you gave that as your legacy to your children and your grandchildren. Tyranny, oppression, the lack of freedom, liberty, and justice. Stand up. I don't implore or beg you to do it. I demand you to do it. Demand you as a citizen of this country to fulfill your obligation per the Declaration of Independence and retract your consent to a government that no longer respects you. And in doing that, you will have some self-respect, and mine, and many others. Thank you.